So good to be here. How's everybody doing? Is everybody in Maycember? Do you know what Maycember is?
What's Maycember?
It's like December, but May.
Do we put up a Christmas tree?
No, it's where there's a ton of activities that are going on and you're trying to rush around and be absolutely everywhere in one place and squeeze lots of fun activities in. This is like our super mild version of it in Puerto Rico, that because there's not as much extracurricular stuff here. So the kids have got like a few little dance recital kind of things that they're doing. But I think in the normal world, while everybody is doing lots of extracurricular,
Is that like
it gets really crazy in May. Yeah, because everybody's trying to get done with everything.
Gotcha.
Oh, looks like we've got
what?
Puerto Rico.
Miguel, Puerto Rico.
That's
so
awesome.
Miguel, one of our favorite beaches is La Pared. And every time we go, they tell us to be careful about the riptide.
Which I listen to, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We've got living in Tacoma, Washington, the original. What's up from Washington State? How you doing, JLM? Good to see you again, JLM. We have JLM's our regular.
Nice.
I'm here. Gavin from Jacksonville, Florida. Deborah from Alabama. So awesome. Guys, we're excited to be here with you. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to come on this. This call, if you're new here, is specifically for couples, for relationships. If you have a spouse or a significant other. And
single people are allowed on here too.
Are they allowed?
Yeah, they're allowed. Like, it's just kind of building a balanced life and cultivating business and relationships, whether those are friendships or spouses or families.
Or maybe if you're single and you're wondering like what married people do, what they're all about. What do they talk about?
Yeah, just all of us talking about cultivating our highest life, our highest ambitions, balance, all the things.
And we have Bruno here.
Yeah.
So Bruno's our Puerto Rican rescue dog, and he basically is in the office with me all day.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of crazy kids running around.
And it's air conditioned in here.
Yeah, I think he's trying to stay safe. So,
but guys, this call is specifically about how to align your vision, how to both be on the same page, how to work together as a team, how to become a power couple. And because this is hard, like life is hard as it is. Whether you're an entrepreneur or business owner doing real estate, it's just hard. And marriage can be hard, and raising kids can be hard. And then you throw a business on there. It's a lot sometimes, and it can be overwhelming. And so if you're not aligned, then that creates some conflict, that creates some friction, and can make things a lot harder, and there can be disconnect. And so what we want to do, hopefully on these lives that we do every week, is talk that through. Maybe share some ideas and really help you and your spouse really kind of build an alignment there so that you're both heading in the same direction. And it can look very different. Last night on Wholesale Hotline that I do with Pace Jamil and Brent Daniels, there was a lady that came on and she said, I want to do real estate investing, but my husband does not. He's very risk averse. He's very safe, and he thinks real estate is risky. What do I do? So it was like a perfect question for tonight's call, but it was on Wholesale Hotline.
Okay.
And everybody was like, well, you got to get him on board and all this stuff. And my comment was, and I'd love your take on this, is I said to her, I said, look, nothing's going wrong. In fact, the fact that you're gas and want to do investing and he's brakes and wants to be safe, it's probably a good thing, because if you guys work together with that, you can find a good balance of brakes and gas. And so I wouldn't look at like him not being on board as necessarily a bad thing, but what can you do to bring him along on the journey? How could he maybe cultivate a little bit more gas and you probably a little bit less gas and more brakes, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I can't remember if we talked about it a little bit last time, but we just finished reading the book Rocket Fuel. So raise your hand or give us a little comment if you've read that book before, so that we can kind of see who's got a little bit of context about this. That's a sweet comment. But So I also, in some of my training, have learned a lot about like personality profiling. In our marriage, we reference a lot uh, polarities, masculine and feminine polarity, which doesn't necessarily have to do, there's lots of ways where he has, more feminine energy. I bring in more masculine energy, but it's this yin and yang in where you have passion and where you have balance. And so this book, Rocket Fuel, is an amazing business book that helps you understand the two different kinds of energy that you need to have for your business to be able to thrive. An integrator, which is the role that I take a lot of times in our marriage, even though I do have a lot of visionary in me, which is like a tricky thing that we have to figure out how I can be a visionary also. And then the visionary role, which tends to be this more risk taking, less calculated. We could call it more ADD, big idea, and doesn't necessarily want to be consistent in like finishing just lots of big ideas, is the visionary role. And then integrator, that is linear and consistent. And so as I've been reading this, I've been really wanting to ask the world about, the correlation that if they are seeing that I am of just this masculine and feminine energy, and what makes a business work is the same as what makes a couple work. And it's a really business, I think, and does take practice to be able to value each role. And so when we're working together in the business, we'll see some of the friction that happens when the integrator is pushing on the visionary. Like when we're in our business roles and I'm trying to hold him accountable and make him show up for meetings, and he just wants to come up with some more amazing ideas or write his scripts for YouTube. And we can see where there's this friction, and it starts to become an ego grab, and where each, instead of seeing each other's strengths, it becomes more of a tug of war of, no, it's the right way of being. There's like the only right way of being is to be a visionary and to be free and to not have a schedule and to only be positive and to never look at the problems. And I'm saying we as the integrator, we have to look at the problems. We have to systematize. We have to be consistent. We have to go to this meeting, even though we don't want to, because that's what it's set aside for. And so what's been really interesting as we've worked together more and more in business, that we can see in hindsight our younger selves fighting over similar, kinds of ways of being in our parenting, or ways of being in our marriage, or ways of being that we fought over even in, I want to live in the same place. I don't want to move around. I don't need to bounce around and have all these different ideas. And I'm not as motivated for variety. And he is, and wants to be able to experience lots of things. I prefer routine. I prefer consistency. And so then it's the age old question, either as business partners or as, partners in life, how do we belong to self and belong to others? And that's the biggest thing that we're going to be talking about in our couples retreat, because you can't belong to someone else. You can't not be resentful of living with somebody else who's so different than you without being your true self, and really being able to find a way to value those two different roles. And I think the way that we value those two different roles is by not apologizing for your true gifts and doing those 100%, and pressuring the other person at the same time to be able to at least appreciate or see the goodness. When you are self-validating what that role is and owning it, then your partner gets permission to be able to do that about their role as well. And that's what really allows you to be able to be different, but value the difference. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you guys have any question about that, like, for sure, we definitely want this to be an interactive.
I think part of the challenge is, when you look at those polarized differences, where, the example I was using was gas and brakes. One's gas, one's brakes. One's a little more aggressive with maybe building a business or income. Another one is a little more safe. like that's creating that big difference is what is attractive, right? Because you're attracting that difference. And so sometimes that's really annoying because you're like, man, I wish my spouse would be more like me because I can relate to that because that's how I am. And so we kind of miss the point of how special that is and how precious that is and how we should really honor that. And because that's what's creating this chemistry between you. Like you want that because that's creating some balance in you. It's helping you. It's pressuring you, whether you see it or not. It's pressuring you to develop a side of you that needs developed more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why
that's that masculine and feminine energy.
Right. Or integrator or visionary,
Yeah.
North Pole, South Pole. And that's the really cool thing and really invigorating thing of why we think that being in a relationship, being in relation with others is what grows you up the best, because there are things that you can't see because of your self-deception. Inside your own head, your ego has to keep like a certain picture of yourself that is not 100% accurate. And when you're living side by side with someone, they're going to point out whatever it is that is not true
Your
or imbalanced, your limitations. And so, recognizing that nothing is going wrong when your partner, whether it's your business partner or your partner in life, is pushing against your way of being. It gives you the opportunity to validate the integrity or the good parts of you and sort out inside yourself what in my way of being is coming from the best in me and what in my way of being is coming from my ego or my anxiety that's not being moldable, that's not, interacting with creating a life and making room for two people. Same thing in a business, making room for both kinds of energy that really are very, very, opposing in what their motivation is and what their objective is, but being able to hold on to your ego enough yourself and realize I'm not the be all end all. Like there are other ways of being that are going to balance my business that I don't have. And there are other ways of being that are going to balance what I don't have inside our family or inside our relationship. And, really remembering the things that I was originally super attracted to Jerry about was because he could be so present and so playful and so fun. Those are things that I've struggled with, but in all honesty, they've also been the things that have driven me absolutely bonkers when I'm like, no, we have a specific system of something that, we need to do right now. This is not the time to be free, or for the love, can we live in like the same place? Or no, we have enough deals. That's still a conversation that we deal with, even though we're working together in the business and we're trying to be a team. That wrestle, that like back and forth of both of us making room is normal. Like, I think that's what we've learned. It's not that you've arrived once you figure out how to not argue about those things anymore. It's how do you hold on to yourself in the face of keeping and coming back to that conversation over and over again to make room for two. That's just the normal part of figuring it out. And, people who tell us that they don't have any conflict in their marriage, we kind of are like, then you're doing it wrong.
Well, then you probably don't have very good connection, because how do you be connected, really connected with someone if you're not able to really speak your mind, really be yourself? If you're not able to tell your spouse where you have struggles or what they're doing that
belong to self.
Yeah.
To be true to yourself.
What they're doing that's hard for you. Like that confrontation and self-confrontation is what really creates an honest relationship. And only through working through that can you really have intimacy and connection. If you're not having any conflict and you're not ever addressing that, then you're really you're either not showing up all the way, or they're not showing up, or neither one of you are really showing up. You're basically accommodating to save face or for whatever reasons, right? You're resentfully accommodating. So you're creating resentment, or you're going along with something, or you're bulldozing through. Mm-hmm. And so that's not healthy, right? So we want to create that kind of healthy conflict and handle that. So like Larry Ruffin, my wife and I are both investors. When I'm up, she's down and vice versa. It's hard on the mind on both of us at times. So yeah, I mean, that's the real part of this, right, Larry? I mean, that's how it is oftentimes.
Yeah. I think that we want to hear the answer that there's some technique that we can learn where we don't have to go through the conflict. And I think that that's where it sets people up to fail even more. That is a normal part of being in relation and growing yourself up. And like we said, really being able to self-validate and to be able to be intimate enough with someone that you're showing who you really are. Even though I know when I'm looking at our business and I see some things that are not going well as integrators do, or I see things in our family that are not consistent. And again, that's my natural way of being. I don't value just, I tease him that he's always in sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows and like doesn't want to be down in reality, which I love that part about him. But I can appreciate that that is him, and that my role is to go down into the weeds sometimes, and that it's a privilege, and I'm secure enough in myself that I'm not telling him only for his approval. I'm not only talking to him about what is positive and good. I'm Because I just want him to like me. I want him to be able to know me. And that's how I'm able to feel free in the relationship. That's how I'm able to be, intimate. And even when you think about physical intimacy, the correlation or just the symbolism of letting your whole self literally be seen, and that is something that is arousing and connecting in a physical sense. In an emotional sense, if we're just responding to our partners in a way that is just going to get their approval and we're not being our true self, then that's not really showing yourself, and you will feel trapped to only do the things that are going to get the other person's approval. And you don't feel good deep inside because you're not being true to where I stand and know, and I hold a different candle in the world for the beauty of systems and discerning what is going wrong, different than his big idea self that needs to stay up in these very high, idealistic clouds. That I'm going to value that, and I'm going to also bring him into more balance, to introduce him to and give him the opportunity to value some of my ways of being. But if I'm just dependent and I'm just doing things to get his approval, I don't be free. He can't be free. We're not actually showing ourselves. That's what intimacy is actually freaking hard. And nobody wants to do intimacy. Everybody wants the connection that comes after intimacy. But intimacy is freaking vulnerable and hard to be able to hold on to yourself. When you're a child, your mental capacity is to get your validation from a parent, and your sense of self from, peers and people that are older than you. But once you're an adult and you develop these new capacities, you've got to pressure being able to self-validate. And that's where we've talked before too, in just the differences of, I haven't valued risk taking. And in a lot of ways, you still have done some of that risk anyway. Like it still was trying to find a win-win, but just he's been able to own, like I've said this before, I thought YouTube was a horrible idea, waste of time. Don't do it. He was like, noted. And I really think that this is who I am. This is how I express myself. I'm a creative person. I've got these big ideas and I want to be able to share them with the world. And so it's finding that balance to be able to do both.
Yeah, that's great. So a couple questions. Any thoughts on that? Keep putting your comments in, guys. I'm going to try to
questions, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to try to.
I can ramble on forever.
Get
so
to
you
some
gotta
of these.
Help.
I really want to do. I know I do in my heart, but I've always been an antisocial person and have bad anxiety. But I've always wanted to do it. Okay, so this is something that AnnMarie talks quite a bit about, which is, if you think about our developed selves, we have the part of us that's like your lower self, the back of your brain, Oftentimes we call that your lizard brain or your monkey brain. It's the part of you that's fight or flight. It's very instinctual. It's very protective. It wants to take the path of least resistance. And then as humans, we have this frontal part of our brain that has reasoning and it has morality, right? And so we're in this constant conflict between, another way to think about this is like your physical and your spiritual. You have these two sides of us that are in battle every single day. And we have to be aware of them, for one. So step one is like be aware of it. So nothing's going wrong, that there's these instinctual things that are fearful and selfish and just want to take care of yourself and your needs. And then there's this higher part of us that hopefully leads out and we can develop into making conscious choice. Like we have agency, we get to make choice. We're not just instinctual only animals, right? We have freedom of choice. And so really learning how to own that choice and act in spite of those fears is the key, right? Like that's how we develop and grow. Is we have these anxieties, we have these fears, we have these things that maybe hold us back. And what do we do to confront that on a daily basis? How are we pressuring ourselves against those things? And it's kind of the 1% rule. If I'm improving a little bit every day, if I'm working in that direction, maybe I make it a step back. But if it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, as long as I'm moving forward, then you're going to continually see growth and development. And our only competition is against ourselves. So it's not, how are you compared to me? It's really just how are you compared to you every day? And that's what our life is up against, ourselves. And I think about it like this. I think humans are very much like a plant. A plant is either growing or dying. You're either growing into a bigger plant, right? Or you're shriveling and dying. Plants don't ever, and trees don't ever just stay the same. They don't ever hit a point where they're like, okay, that's it. We're here. You're growing or you're dying. And that's how we are. So if we're not developing ourselves every day, then we're going backwards. So knowing that, how do we wake up every day? How do we face the things we have to challenge? At the end of the day, are we able to look in the mirror and say, am I happy with where I'm at in my life? Do I feel like I'm showing up the best in me as a parent or a business owner or a spouse? And most of the time the answer is no. And if the answer is no, which it should be most of the time, then the next question is, okay, well, what changes do I need to make? How can I course correct so that I'm living with integrity? If I go to bed with myself at night, can I have integrity around the way that I'm showing up? And again, if I'm not, then what changes do I need to make so that I am? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where you really start to develop and grow as a human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I love, is it Zoru? Is that he's got a question up here too that is just talking about, getting over failing. And these are the questions that I love because I think there's so much to do with, how relationships work and how business works. It's the same thing. And so the fear of, failing in your relationship or getting into an argument or not feeling connected, that same fear of not being able to do a deal and taking this big risk in an investment that you're going to make and being able to hold on to your sense of self and your different ways of doing deals, even in the different ways than you're going to do your business than Jerry, or you're going to make the calls than Jerry, and being able to hold on to your unique goodness. And at the same time, still hold that while you're getting rejected, either getting rejected from a spouse or whether you're getting rejected from a seller or just rejected from, the deal. And when you really can hold on to yourself in the face of rejection from the deal or rejection from a spouse, that is where true satiation and peace comes from. Mm-hmm. And that's how you can keep coming back for more deals, is because your sense of self is not associated with your failure. You understand that deal that you're doing is for experience sake. Even if the deal doesn't go through, you're going to learn things from it. So you can take that kind of risk because it doesn't mean anything about your worth. And this is true also in a relationship. To really be able to have passion and really be able to have connection, you have to know and be able to hold on to yourself and put yourself out there and know that even if you get rejected, whether it's like a big time, like separation kind of anxiety or rejection, or maybe just a, like, I don't want to, sit and watch a movie with you, or you're wanting them to sit and listen to you and they're not in a place to do that. But being able to hold on to your own value in the face of relationship failure, which is going to happen as you're doing your separate but together things, that you're going to have different ideas about what connection means, or what an exciting life, or what a stable life, or what a safe life means. And it's being able to hold on to the differences that is really what allows you to have that passion and to just keep coming back for more and trying again. And that's the same thing in real estate. When you're willing to try again on this deal, on that deal, over and over again, that's how you're going to get your success. That's how you get your deal, because you're practicing over and over and over again. And you can practice because it doesn't mean anything about you. And so that is really actually the work. And when I talk with our coaching students in our fast track program, this is the main thing that we talk about every week, is whether or not you're using a deal to reinforce your ego, or if you're actually doing a deal for a deal's sake. Because the mindset that you have to try to prove your ego is, your thoughts are going to get in the way. And there's a lot of scarcity if you're not holding on to yourself, you're not holding on to your ego, and you're using that deal to prove that you're not really good enough and that you don't really deserve to have this kind of, wealth. Well, we have those same ideas in our relationships, that we look to our worst fear in the face of how our significant other responds to us. And so when you're in a relationship for the sake of the other one proving to you that you're good enough, because you can't prove to yourself that you're good enough, or that you even still hold on to the belief that you need to be good enough, that you're not inherently just have infinite worth because you're a human, and you're using the business, or you're using a significant other to get and extract that sense of self, it never works. The deals won't work and the relationship won't work. Everybody can tell when they're being used. So it's a really, really important differentiation to understand that works for your business and your relationship.
Yeah. So Jamie Jenner, this is tough. She's trying to do real estate, doesn't have support from her partner, discouraging, so that the disapproval is kind of like, well, I kind of want to give up on this because I don't have that support. Yeah, I mean, that's hard to do this without feeling support from someone. I don't think it's impossible. It is challenging if you don't have that support. So what ideas could Jamie do? What would be some things that maybe would be helpful for her, not having support?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it is going inward. I think I've talked about this on the other live that we did, but I have a YouTube video on Jerry's channel, and it's called How to Solve Any Problem. And it is this model that I use that helps you to be able to see your different motivations. It helps you to be able to see how you're seeking outside of yourself to be able to validate yourself. And so, especially in the face of rejection, I mean, first and most important thing is to be kind to your nervous system, be kind to yourself. There's biological triggers that happen when we feel like we're genuinely alone that really do hurt and that really are hard. And so sometimes it's exercising the muscle of sitting in that pain and being able to feel those feelings and tell yourself, this really hurts, it really sucks, but I'm still here and I am my own person, and look at me handling these hard feelings of rejection. And then when you feel like you have felt some of those feels and you're ready to make choices and new thoughts again, that's when you go inward and you look for the best in you, and you practice self-validating, not needing other people to give you approval on the things that you're choosing to do. But that means that you genuinely have to have integrity. You can't be doing things that you really don't feel are for your you're distracting me, but for your greater good. Like, you have to really be able to go inward. This is where I love personality profiling, certain personality profiling, specifically the Enneagram. Because the Enneagram helps you discern what your motivation is in this world. And I think it really helps you to be able to see. Strengths Finder is something that's also similar. It helps you to be able to see your superpower and helps you to resonate and like encourage and cultivate joy around your superpower. But then it also is allowing you to see the worst in you and to not make it mean something about you, because you kind of just recognize, yeah, this is just like a little part of my genetics. Not that I can't do something to change things, but it just helps you understand, like, this is the way that my nervous system was wired, what it's motivated towards. And I am in charge of steering what those thoughts mean, not someone else, not a deal, not
A spouse.
not a child. Okay. I just had Mother's Day, and, there's lots of triggers, I think, that happen in Mother's Day when we talk about these amazing moms that were always happy and always there for their kids. And in all honesty, having a really hard Mother's Day where I was struggling to self-validate that day, and hearing about all these other perfect moms and knowing my limitations, that was an opportunity for me to have to really be able to go inward and be honest and be like, you know what? Some of those things I do want to work on, and that's true, but that doesn't make my worth less. That just gives me context and awareness of some things that I want to be able to work on. And I'm still lovable. I don't have to prove my worth through people approving me, especially teenagers that don't have a fully frontal cortex that is functional yet. I can take what they say with a grain of salt and not put my mattering, my worth in anybody else's court except for God's. And God's is unconditional. So
Love that. So Gavin, great question. Would love to know y'all's opinion on taking time away from the wife and kids to focus on business. Is spending less time with the kids to grow the business doing more harm than good? So there's certainly a big sacrifice that goes into the business, and it happens in the early stages quite a bit, because for most people like me, you have a full-time job and then you're doing this as a side hustle. So then you're spending time, before work, after work, weekends. That time in the business is time away from family sometimes. Even throughout, once you become full-time and you become successful, there's periods of time in the business where it's very demanding. Maybe other times where less so. We've certainly had that. But I think to get to this question here, sometimes it's about quantity. This is my opinion. With kids and with a spouse, there's certainly an element of quantity time. So putting in the time, like little kids, they just need consistency. They need to know you well. They need to see you a lot to create a relationship. But during times where that might be limited and you only have a limited amount, the quality part really matters a lot. So quality always matters, because a lot of quantity that's not high quality isn't very good either. But so it's either, quantity and quality. But if you can only pick quality, or you have limited time, you really want to make that quality time matter. So there's times, I'll give you an example. There's times in our day where it's very, very busy. But if AnnMarie and I can take an hour in the morning early before we start the day, before she starts doing homeschool and running, and I'm running with the business, and maybe that day we don't see each other till late at night and we're kind of a passing ship, how do we still stay connected even though we have that very limited time? Well, it might be 15 minutes, it might be an hour. Can I create little times in the day where I can really connect and really make that time meaningful? So I would focus, Gavin, on really making that quality time, really be present when you are there. And you've got to do a lot of what we call pre-teaching with your kids and with your spouse. You've got to talk a lot about your vision, why you're doing what you're doing. Sometimes I'm good at this, sometimes not so good at this, but helping everybody in the family know, why is dad making this sacrifice? Why is this important? Can we get behind him? Can we support him? and really explaining that all the time. Don't just assume that they know you're doing it for them. They don't just assume that you're doing it for them, and neither does your spouse.
Because sometimes you're not.
And sometimes you might not be.
Sometimes you are needing to face that you're talking about and you're over focusing on the business because you're trying to prove your worth through the business, and it's not genuinely just for your spouse. And so it's really having that integrity around what you've honestly chosen is the best thing for your time. And so when you have integrity and you really can say, I've thought this through, and about this much time on my business is what is needful for where we're at right now. And this much time with my kids is what is needful right now. But then you have to be able to be disciplined and have the self-control to be really present with whichever thing you've chosen. And so, and you will be able to be more present with your business when you're honest about in your heart you've allocated this is how much time. And it's not good for kids to be the center of the universe all the time, and it is needful that you take time to provide for them and figure out how to be able to create a lifestyle for your family. So it's really important that you allow yourself to kind of let that nervous system looping, that guilt, it can go away when you've had integrity around this is how much time is for the greater good to spend with my kids. And when I'm not with my kids anymore, I can be with business because I have consciously made a plan to allocate how much time there is for both. And that allows you to be really present with your kids and then really present with your business. And there are different times and seasons where the business needs more, and different times and seasons with kids when they need more or less in different ages and stages and as they go through phases. So that's a constant development to be discerning what that right timing is. But I think it's more about being really disciplined with what you've come up with as your plan and then sticking to that.
Yeah, and that kind of answers Keith's question here. And Keith, I love this comment to your question. Whenever you get done working and you start to hang out with your wife, just limit yourself to talking about real estate. Just talk about the big picture of what you want to come out of the real estate game. And I think the advice here is like, if you're talking about deals and real estate and making money, you might not get other people on board with like why you're doing that. But if you talk about why you're doing it and the lifestyle you're trying to create and how that's going to bless others and bless your family, now you can start to have people see your vision of why you're doing it, because real estate is a means to an end, right? Like it's not so much the deals that's why we're doing it, but it's what does the deals and the income, what does that provide? What is that providing for you and your life and your family? What difference are you making in the world? Like that's why we do it. Even if we're taking the money and doing something else with it, help people around you see that. And that's how they'll be more supportive too.
And I think to add to that, also listening and knowing that, the significant other has more than likely, because it seems like it's almost always opposites that are attracting. And so as you talk about your vision, it's also listening so that the other one can trust that what they're trying to create in their life is also valuable and also important. And so that helps to create teamwork where you're feeling like both of the things that we're trying to create are valued. But when it's just, this is just no matter what the right thing, and I'm just going to kind of be a bull in a china shop, and you're not, again, valuing their sense of self and having an opportunity to see the beauty in a life that looks a little bit different, and having that be, a real listening opportunity to make room for two. But then you can not apologize and still hold on to like, I have this vision for our life with real estate, and this is how I see it. But then also being able to listen and kind of confront which parts are your blind side.
Yes. And that, I think that answers Lilantha, this question here. If your family's saying, your spouse is saying, we have to compete for your time, then let that be a red flag that there's some miscommunication that's happening. Maybe they're right, maybe they're not, but maybe it means that you need to help them understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And maybe there's you're not being as present as you could be when you are with them. Like,
that's what I would say.
Yeah. So
that
do some
anytime
self-confrontation.
I've said that to him before too. And it's because there's not a specific time, even if that time was only 10 or 15 minutes. And I've, as I've understood and listened to him with what's going on with the business, I can kind of map the quantity of time that he has available. But if I know that he only has 15 minutes in a day because it's a super busy day, then the quality, like really setting everything aside, and we'll have these what like we call like cultivating moments that don't take a really long time, but they are eyeball to eyeball, deep, just presence and being able to be that vulnerable, looking each other in the eye. And I know in that moment that he doesn't have anything else that's going on, and that it's just his desire. I feel his desire to be present with me, but we also know that we have multiple things and hats that we're juggling, and that is for the greater good. But we have discerned this is the amount of time, and there still does require time. And I don't think it's a good idea to keep doing 15 minutes is all over and over. Like the goal, you have to genuinely, the partner has to genuinely feel like it is the goal to get to being able to have more, that you're doing a sacrifice for the sake of that. It's not going to always be like that grind. So you have to be able to kind of confront if you're having like a work addiction and you're not being balanced, or if it really is, I'm trying to grow the business, not I'm trying to escape from my life by going and doing business all the time. The partner's going to map that in 2 seconds and call you out on it and be like, bull, you're trying to escape me. You're trying to not be vulnerable with me. That's not going to go over very well. So it's the ability to really let everything go for whatever you think is the most important time frame, and just like laser in and be lovey-dovey, like just even if you're not saying anything, but you're just so physically present.
Yeah, bringing that energy.
Yeah, it's intoxicating. And just 10 minutes of that in the day, I swear I could go for weeks on that, because it's just such a privilege and a blessing when you really feel connected and you're getting the privilege of sharing a life with someone. Like, you can't ask for anything better.
That's really special. So JLM, he's very curious about our lives because he asks a lot of questions about how we do things. So it's really fun.
I love that.
So he wants to know how we divide our time between Puerto Rico and Montana throughout the year. So what we typically do is we do 3 months in the summer at our lake house in Montana. So we do July, August, September. And then we usually do another month, like around Christmas time. And then throughout the year, we do lots of travel trips. Like we've done Europe a couple times this past year. And sometimes we'll go, like you and I went for a week to Orlando. And so we got small trips in between. This year we'll average just barely a little over 6 months.
A little less than 6 months.
No, we have to be 6 months in one day. So we'll be a little over in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So we'll do, a little over 6 months in Puerto Rico. The rule here for the tax incentives is we have to be here 6 months in one day. That's the bare minimum. So we usually hit that and then a little bit. But yeah, we do travel a lot. So when we travel doing that, we're usually taking our whole family. So, 10 people on an airplane.
It's some logistics.
Yeah,
guys.
It's nuts.
It is pretty crazy.
And it's not easy to get to northern Montana from Puerto Rico.
We have like our different routes, but most of them have like only a 45-minute layover. So there's lots of strategies and packing, like to be able to have everything that we need with us on the plane, and like buddy systems where we can have older kids sitting next to younger kids, because obviously Jerry and I can't sit next to everyone. So there's like, as soon as we get the seat assignments, kind of switching things around and trying to make sure that kids are all accounted for. Like we start packing airplane bags probably like a good couple weeks before it's even time for us to go, making sure that things in Montana are like there's food there and all like ready to go. I take videos of what clothes we have. We don't keep a ton in Montana, but we do keep a few things, and I'll take videos before we leave so that I can remember what's there before we pack and bring stuff back and forth between the two places. So it's really fun. It's really amazing to have a life where we get such a different landscape, just like very different cultures, very different contexts, but it's definitely not without some significant logistics to be able to take care of two spaces, to be able to make sure such a large family that we have everything that we need and are going to be comfortable and not be disrupting anybody around us on the plane. So we should do a YouTube video just about that. I think that
our travel logistics is pretty crazy.
That would entertain the world.
And right now, our lives are very, very busy because part of what we're doing for May and June is we're trying to get a lot of work done, and we're batching a lot of work so that we can be a little slower in Montana for the summer. So it's kind of very, very intense right now. But we know that, and we have a plan, and we're working through it so that we can have those 3 months in the summer to be a lot more chill. So my goal is to try to work a lot less this summer and really have a fun summer, do a lot of fun things. We, like I said, we have a lake and we have a boat, and so we'll go boating every day and stuff. So, but this is, I could try to do this a quick one. So Zuru is Tommy. He says his name was Tommy. So Tommy, I wanted to say this earlier too with some of your questions. You know, having a big why, I call it your big why, is very important when you get into this business because you're going to hit a lot of walls along the way. We've got some older kids that are trying to do the business right now, and it's a grind. You know, they're on the phones and they're making lots of offers, and they can get close sometimes and they get discouraged. And you really got to have a compelling reason why this is important to you to push you through those tough moments. And so for me, when I was first married, we had a few small kids. I was in my late 20s. I really wanted something better. I wasn't happy with what I was doing. And I just wanted to feel like I was living a life that I felt was my own, right? I didn't want to work for somebody else. I didn't want to build someone else's dream. I wanted to build my own dream. And my first deal, and when you get your first deal, Tommy, it'll be magical. I remember I was driving for dollars and I drove by this house and it had a tiny little for sale sign in the window that was faded from being in the sun. Like it had been there for, I don't know how long. And I could barely make out the number. It was vacant. I called the number. The guy met me over at the house and we agreed on a price. I didn't even know what I was doing. I had like a 1-page contract and he told me what he wanted. I said, okay. We wrote the price down on this piece of paper. And then I thought, okay, now how do I find a buyer? And what I did is, at the time, there was no software, no tools or anything. I went on the MLS because at the time there was the MLS. And I said, okay, well, who's buying cash in this neighborhood? And I look on the MLS and it tells you what transaction happened with cash. And I noticed this guy from Cambodia. I'll never forget this guy. His name was Rin, R-I-N, Rin. And he had bought like 3 or 4 properties recently in the area for cash. So I didn't know how to get a hold of this guy. There wasn't skip tracing and stuff like this back then. So I said, well, I'm just going to go to the property and maybe I can find him that way. So I knock on the door of this house. I knew the house he bought. I knock on the door and the tenant answers the door. And I say, hey, I'm looking for Rin. And the tenant says, yeah, that's my landlord. Do you want his number? I'm like, yeah. So he gives me his number. I call him and I say, hey, I got this house on XYZ Street right by here. And he says, I'll meet you there in 10 minutes. So I'm like, okay. So I go back to the house. He comes through the house. He walks around for a few minutes. He asks me my price. I tell him my price. He says, well, I can't pay that, but I can pay this. And it was like, guys, this was like inner city Detroit, right? So it was like $12,000. And I had the deal for $12,000 and his offer was like $19,000 or $18,000. It was a $6,000 wholesale. So I had another 1-page contract for an assignment. We fill it out. I agree. I didn't even counter him. I just agreed. And it was a $6,000 deal. And that was my first wholesale deal. And at the time, it could have been $1 million. Like it was, to me, it was all the money in the world because I had done it, right? I I'd done my first deal, and I'll never forget that feeling of like excitement of doing that first deal. And I've been chasing that dopamine hit ever since. Yeah. That same dopamine hit. It's like doing drugs the first time. You never get the same high again. Like that's what it felt like for my first deal.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So guys, I mean, let that, I hope that's an inspiration to you, Tommy. Like, don't give up. Something clicks. Like I told AnnMarie this. I said, when the boys get their first deal, like they truly get their first deal, and I don't help them, and they do it on their own, and they have that feeling of accomplishment doing that first deal, their life will change forever, because that first deal is a pivotal moment where something happens in your brain where you're like, okay, this isn't just dad, this isn't just somebody else, like this is real. I did this, I can do it again. And it's life changing. So you got to get that proof of concept with that first deal.
I think that there's some, other things between the lines too, though. And this is something that I talk about with our coaching students a whole lot is, a lot of people probably could have a similar experience and be really just like, oh, that was so stressful, and be like kind of cultivating the difficulty or cultivating the negative aspect of it. And I think that that's actually a real superpower of Jerry, is that in all the deals, but and especially in his first deal, that's an actual skill set to cultivate and draw out the dopamine and the joy and the goodness. And again, not making it mean something about you when he has stuff go wrong all the time, and is really good at not making it mean something about him, that's just the learning process. And so I think some people don't recognize, there's lots of times that I don't even put it together, that I have some power over the thoughts or the feelings that I'm cultivating with my thoughts. And so getting really clear on, and that's also inside that how to solve any problem video that we talked about earlier, that's on Jerry's YouTube channel, where it shows you a really delineated way to be able to look at the worst in you and the best in you, and how you are drawing out these different emotions. Because the really positive emotions, the really excited emotions, or the really like just connected, dramatic emotions are the ones that our nervous system attaches to and triggers to. So there's things that you can do to be able to cultivate those. Okay. And I have to answer before you do the really quick question about who do you pay to write the script? Okay. I can vouch for Jerry. He pays no one to write his scripts. And it's the funniest little thing, because he's not even on his computer all like official. Like, he gets his phone and he like chicken pecks at his phone and will write
Not all the time.
Most of the time, just kind of wherever we're at, you can tell he's in visionary world and he is an amazing writer. His English class in high school was his favorite. And we've tried to get help from editors before, and it never works. He always just is like, no, I go back and I want to do it myself. And he's really good at making it succinct. So that is not something that we outsource. So
yeah, not always. Like sometimes there'll be clips of things, or like I'll take a video from a Zoom that we did where I'm working with a student, or it might be like a presentation. But most of the videos on the channel that you guys watch, I put a lot of thought into those videos, a lot of effort, a lot of thought, a lot of revisions. I go back over it over and over again, because for me, I value your time. And if you're going to spend 12 minutes watching my video, I don't want to waste your time without giving you as much value as I possibly can. And I feel like I owe that to a viewer. I feel like I owe you that.
No, it's crazy what you give.
So
thank you guys for the love too. You guys are so affirming.
You guys are great. Thank you.
We really appreciate.
I want to touch on this one. This is some tough stuff here. So Jim, wife and I are separated right now, but still love each other. How do I show her how much I care and love her, but still give her some space to heal? Jim, your situation is probably unique to you, but I would say, Jim, win her back. Win her back. Don't give up on her. You fight for her. She may want to see that you fight for her. Like, fight for her. She's worth it. Don't give up on her. If you love her and there's like it's not a good thing. Some things maybe it needs to happen. Like it's the best thing is that you're not together. And so maybe you need to face some of that. But like, if you really feel like it's the right thing for you two to be together, and whatever happened for that to go that way, I would say win her back. Do everything you can to win her back. At least you can look in the mirror and say, I did everything I could to show up the best I could for this relationship. I did everything in my power to win her back. And if she's still choosing, because she has to choose too, if she's still choosing not to, then at least you can know that you did your part the very best you could. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. And I think to go along with the question of like what to do to also give space to be able to heal, I think the best way of of giving her space is by you focusing on and showing her that you're willing to self-confront, that it's not, coming together is not about finding fault with somebody else, but that you have the strength, and especially that beautiful masculine energy to be able to say, this is what's healing, is because I'm going inward, and I am not just going to be a certain way to get you to like me. The way that you can heal and trust is because I'm going to show you that I am willing to grow myself up for my own motivation, because it's what I deeply feel deep inside of me. I can self-confront. I can see what things I need to work on. And I'm going to be vulnerable enough to let you know that there are things that I need to work on, and I will work on them. And just showing that you're willing to go inward is giving her the space to do her, because when you do you and you look at yourself, then we as humans, we mirror each other. It gives her permission to be able to go inward about herself and really be able to trust that who she's, yoking herself with is not just doing things from a shallow approval perspective, but doing it because they genuinely just want to be good and do good and what is fair and loving and kind. So that's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
And I just want to put his comment on there. Whoops. Where'd it go? Here it is. I've been fighting, Jerry. Love you, brother. Also working on myself. Thank you so much. Good.
Yeah.
That's awesome, Jim.
Yep.
Jim,
and
let
everybody
us
goes through, like, we've gone through hard moments like that also. And sometimes it's just joining or just accepting part of the process of this natural kind of like, you come together and you have to have times where you kind of come apart to be able to learn the new way to be able to come together. And so many of us get so freaked out when the connection kind of comes away, but it's just like the waves that, come up on the sand over and over, that the seasons that we go through, that sometimes when we understand it's developmental or it's a process, it helps us to get through the process. And like you said, keep fighting.
Yeah. So I want to congratulate Benjamin Mudd. Ben, way to go.
Woo!
Got your first deal right before the chat today. Super excited,
awesome.
Feeling very blessed. So let us know. This was on.
Love this.
You got a signed contract with a seller, and now you got to find your buyer, or where are you at? Is that the contract with your buyer? Let me know. But we're excited to be working with you too, and can't wait to hear all about this. How you're doing with anything? Would love to be a part of that. So good for you guys. That's awesome. And it's in here, wife and son. So that's fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that. When we can, that goes along kind of with this question right here. That is something that we look for, as you guys are seeing with Jerry's lives that he's been doing with our boys. And, just we did kind of talk a little bit about this at the beginning of this live, but like the specific how to structure family and business time. And there are some creative ways that we can do that. And so we could kind of share a little bit of like what our schedule looks like. And obviously we're a little bit more established in our business. This is not the schedule that we could have when we were first starting in real estate. It's not the schedule that we could have when our kids were younger. But now, our kids are a little bit older. Now our business is in a different situation. We actually hire local teens that are homeschooling in our neighborhood And first thing in the morning, we spend an hour, just the two of us. We do a walk on the beach where we're getting a little bit of exercise. That's our power couple time. It's not allowed to talk just about work. Sometimes a few work things come up, but we understand that it's with like a much higher level. It's not logistical kinds of things. It's the kinds of things that are going to cultivate and draw out like passion and excitement. Doing something novel and new in our business also creates passion in our relationship, or maybe it'll just be holding hands or being playful and silly with each other. That like work is often, we love and cherish that time. And then we have from 9 until 5 where we might send each other a quick little text, or I might bring him some food in for lunch and get like a quick, just like that eyeball to eyeball connection time that I was talking about earlier. But then it's nose to the grindstone all the way until 5 o'clock. And then 5 o'clock is when he's done with work. I work on a lot of things in our business, or I work on our coaching in the afternoon. So we're both more in work mode in the afternoon. Jerry's also in work mode in the morning, but he also takes an hour at the gym in the morning after we've had our couples time. And then in the morning, I am 100% about my kids and homeschooling them. I'm working side by side. We've got different tutors that are calling in so that I can have more one-on-one time with each of the different ages and stages, because there's also other people that are helping to answer any of the school questions that they have. But then after 5 is family time. And that's why we do these lives at 9 o'clock, because the kids are all in bed and this is like our couples time.
It's been crazy lately because the kids are doing this challenge, which, by the way, Lily and I put the link in there to the playlist because we stream live. It's called the 0 to 60 challenge. And our oldest son, who runs our hotel here in Puerto Rico, and Nathan, our second, he's got a full-time job. So these guys are working on their wholesale business in the evenings. And it's like, hey, Dad, can you help me out? Can you? Yeah. So like right before this, I was on with Jared.
Yeah.
And I'm like trying to help him through with some things and, like analyze a deal or help him, make the offer. So that's been really crazy, but it's been great because it's like family time helping my boys, but it's been intense with them. Jonathan too. So we have 3 boys doing it.
Yeah, but it's just like in our mind. And JLM, don't apologize at all for asking.
Yeah, questions. Ask away.
That is the point of this. But
we're an open book.
It's just a allocated specific, like in your mind is like, this is my time where I'm working on family. This is my time where I'm really working on my business. This is the time where I'm really working on my health. Or this is a time where I'm really working on my relationship. And so for us, that's about what our schedule is every day. And in the afternoons when I'm in more business mode, like we've got a rehab that's going on, just a golf cart ride down the road right now. And so I'm also aware of that. And in between different meetings or coaching calls, I'm working on different like design parts or some of the operations inside our business. Then I am also calling my boys and like, hey, there's a bunch of furniture that needs to be put together, or there's a bunch of trash that needs taken out at the rehab. Can you guys go over there? Or, after 5 o'clock when Jerry's done, that's his time with our one son who works all his thumbnails and does a lot of editing for him. And so we definitely do try to integrate the kids into
the business,
as much as we possibly can.
So our 15-year-old does the thumbnails on the YouTube channel, and we have a real thumbnail designer that does some of them. And what we do is they both make the thumbnail, and then we have a software where it'll split test the 2 thumbnails, and then it will do it for a period of time, and then it will tell you which was the winner, which thumbnail got more clicks. And if Josh wins, he gets a $5 bonus. Yeah. So if our son he wins, he beats the real thumbnail designer. He's 15 years old, like half the time.
So cool.
Yeah. And he gets a $5 bonus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So wherever we can, we try to integrate them. But it's a tricky juggling act. And there's definitely times in the afternoon where my littler kids don't want me to, go and be quiet on the phone. And those are the times where I have to hold on to the greater good of what we're building as a family, the greater good of the impact that I'm also trying to be able to have on community, not just our family, and the example that I know I'm setting for my children, that there's goodness in building our relationships inside our home, but there's also goodness in building relationships or bringing value outside our home. So for sure, we've brought our kids with us before to different speaking engagements. Last fall, we kind of did a tour around and did some different speaking things. And that was really cool to be able to let the kids see, it's not just about making money. It's about the experience in your life that you're having as you're making money, the experiences that we create with travel. Like you said, we took a few of our kids to where I grew up in Switzerland, where my dad was born in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And so giving them these different kinds of experiences and letting them see also people coming up to their dad and saying, "Oh my gosh, you changed my life. Like I didn't have financial freedom and now I do. And it's all from free content that you just shared with us on YouTube." And it gives our children context of like, maybe dad's kind of smart. Maybe I should listen to him every once in a while, but also just to give permission for, like, it's just framed differently than saying, especially as his wife and as his supporter, I don't want to be in a place where I'm saying dad's ignoring the family and look at all these like speaking events that he has is taking him away from us, and frame it to our children of like, we get the opportunity to pay it forward, and other people were willing to share with dad the things that they knew about real estate or work with him or do deals with him. And now he's paying that forward. And when we bring goodness to others, it also brings goodness to us, and we will make some income at the same time. And then it's just this beautiful circle of goodness where it's not this scarcity of, people are taking dad away. It's no, like, what are we doing to contribute for the greater good, and unapologetic that there's going to be some give and take, and that's what we do to provide for ourselves.
Yeah. So this question here, Rick, yeah, I remember putting that video together. So
I don't know if I love that video.
You don't love that video? It is hard. Maybe we won't always do this, but
I don't know, guys. I'm getting old.
Yeah. Well, Puerto Rico's not
going to be forever.
We have more moving.
Ahead of us, and
we were just talking about maybe doing another RV trip or another travel trip, like an extended travel trip.
Yeah, we want to do an
9
RV
months
trip
or so.
Because the second 5 didn't get an RV trip.
Didn't get the first trip. Yeah, because we did it now 10, 11 years ago. We did if you guys don't know, we did a year-long RV trip with 6 kids. So but the idea here between moving every 3 to 5 years to a new location is what happens is when you move to a new location, you have to reset everything. You have to make new friends. You have to challenge yourself to learn a new place. And in that challenge of a new place, there's a couple things that happen. First, it pushes you to grow because you get so comfortable if you live in the same place your whole life. And 2, it gives you permission to start over because nobody in that new place knows you. And everybody in the old place knows you. And so when you say to your old buddies that you grew up with, hey, I'm trying to be a better person, or I'm trying to start a business, it's kind of the crab effect. People tend to want to pull you down. And so one of the greatest things that's helped us be successful is moving around quite a bit.
It's grown us up.
It's grown us up a lot.
It's definitely hard. And
it's had challenges.
Times and seasons, I think, with what's going on with the different kids or just different ages. But there definitely is goodness in it, but you got to balance like all the things that you've got going on too. It's very dysregulating. So you got to balance things. Yeah.
So Rick, we're doing this couples retreat coming up in June. It's coming up quick. And we're really excited. It's the first one we've done. We've got some great ideas that we're going to be sharing there. It's small groups, so it's never going to be like big group. We want to make sure it's a lot of individual attention. And we don't know. We don't know. We don't have one on the calendar. If it goes well and people like it, and there's people that want to do it, maybe we'll do another one. But we want to share these ideas with the world. We feel like, I'm going to be 47 this year, and most guys my age in the real estate space or in the entrepreneur space are divorced or on another relationship, and so if we can share things that maybe can help prevent that and help entrepreneurs stay connected to their marriage and have a happy relationship, then we feel like we want to do that. We've been married 25 years. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, but it's definitely also an intense thing to take away from the family. So we're not exactly sure. We're going to try this one out and see how it goes and what is most helpful. But it's really one of these things too, that is real synergy in our business, where we're hoping that we're getting a chance to give back, but it also is accomplishing goals that we have to be reminding ourselves constantly, like even in work, about these higher principles of belonging to self and belonging to each other and making room for each other. And so as we're taking time to talk about the retreat and the different concepts that we want to bring up, like it reminds us, because we need reminders all the time. And I saw a question here also asking about how often we fight. Yeah, we still fight.
You mean today or like when?
Exactly. I mean, I don't know how often, I don't keep track. It's not every single day for sure. I don't think it's every week, but it still for sure happens. And the way that we get over it is by calming ourselves down and coming to our senses and out of our reflexive nervous system self, and kind of learning some tools to self-soothe before we can come back and be in a higher brain space to be able to make room for two people, and accepting and knowing that this is a normal process, that we know when there's a disagreement that we will say things to each other like, I'm dysregulated right now and I need to calm down a little bit. And when I am calm, then I'll come back and we'll try to figure this out. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times and we get re-triggered and we'll just go right back into it. But that I think has been the biggest thing that we didn't understand when we were first married, telling the difference between my nervous system is just triggered right now. So I'm not coming from the best in me. I'm just reflexive right now, and learning how to get ourselves into that higher place and then coming back to the conversation, not just, oh, this is conflict, and so I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, so I love that. So Devron, definitely come without kids. I mean, the smartest thing you could do would be to come to this before you have kids.
Yeah. Can we imagine if we would have learned all this
stuff? Oh my
gosh,
yeah. Yeah. So I would highly recommend it if you're married, no kids, mm-hmm. because if you set yourself on the right trajectory in your marriage early on, because once you start adding kids, the complications of life and business and marriage mm-hmm. are compounded tremendously with mm-hmm. kids.
Yeah. Definitely.
Tremendously.
And I think in our ad or whatever, like the video that we did, it talked about, talking about different home systems and even like homeschooling. There's lots of people that have interest, but this is going to be a really interactive retreat where you're actually coming away from the retreat with your own plan and having opportunities to go off as a couple. I mean, it's romantic Puerto Rico, and be able to kind of be guided through some of these conversations that need to happen for you to create your own plan. But we'll have some classes that are, people can just kind of choose what is the word? Section off or whatever for the homeschool people who are curious about that. Breakout sessions. That's the word that I'm looking for. Jerry will talk some real estate, specifics also for those of you that would, or those of the people that are there when they're interested. So it's going to be super flexible to all the different situations.
Yeah. So Rick's got a great question here around money. As our finances grow with real estate, how do I communicate growing finances with my wife? Yeah, I mean, this is also could be a great source of disconnect in a marriage if one's a saver, one's a spender, or one wants to invest, one doesn't. So again, these are just areas of your marriage, just like spirituality and other areas, how you raise your kids. You're going to be coming from your reference of how you grew up. Your wife is going to be coming from her reference of how she grew up. Now you're merging a life together and trying to make room. Yeah, it's not, but it's just having conversations. Like, just stay in the conversation. Like, that's something that AnnMarie and I talk about a lot, is like, how do we stay in this conversation? Because I want to make room for you. If you're both showing up to the relationship, then you want to make room for the other one.
Yeah.
And if you just stay in the conversation, then you can come to something that works. Remember, in life, all of life is a two-choice dilemma. And a two-choice dilemma means there's a choice that you're going to like and there's a choice that you're not going to like. And you have to make a choice. And that's it. Like, you have to own it. Like, own your choice around what's going on.
Or the choice might be crap and crappier. Like,
yeah.
the choice that you really love is not there.
Yeah.
And you still have to make a choice anyway, where it's like, the hard thing is I want to be in relation with you. I love you. I don't want to grow up alone. But yet this thing over here is really valuable to you. That's not valuable to me. And so that's the two-choice dilemma that Jerry's talking about. Which one is more important? And, I want to stay in relationship with you. And you kind of got to pick what your really big priorities are. And that is just some great people growing discussions for sure.
So let's make sure we get to some of these questions here. We've gone over, but there's a lot of great questions. Are you okay to stay a little bit longer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we both have our individual LLCs and it's taxing, but we are empty nester, which is ideal for what we are doing. It's weird that we both have different skill sets that we develop on our separate, but I think maybe that continued on. Yeah, sorry. I'm not sure, Larry, was this the first part of it maybe? My wife just got off the Zoom in her office and I just finished the skip trace plan for tomorrow. She came in for a half second and now she's off the bed. She did have a long day. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Tommy's question, how do I join your class or can I learn from you? As of right now, I'm in a trade and I do like it. It's fun and different. If I could figure it out and get it down, wholesaling is where my heart is. Yeah. So, when you finish your 9 to 5, you're going to start your, 6 to midnight or whatever it is. And
at the beginning,
mm-hmm. It's going to be brutal. And you really gotta have that big why to push you through those long days when you're tired and you'd rather just sit and watch TV or whatever. And, but put in the work, make the effort. For me, I never had a plan B. It was like when this is going to work, not if this is going to work. I just was so committed to the process that I knew it would work if I just put in the time. So like in this challenge I'm doing with my boys, I keep telling them, guys, you got to hit your metrics every day. You got to get your 5 calls, your 10 cold calls, and your 10 follow-ups every day. And if you get it done in 3 hours, great. If it takes you 4 hours, but you've got to be consistent. The only way this works is if you're consistent. That's how you get the wins. And so I'm trying to help them realize you can't sort of do it today and then maybe not for a couple days. You won't move the needle that way. All right, let's see. Do we have any other maybe last questions before we wrap up here for a few more minutes?
Married young, out of diapers. That's kind of true.
Well, so AnnMarie was 18 in 1 week when we got married. I was 21. Yeah. You definitely cradle snatcher. Uh-huh. But you were an old soul. You were not a typical 18-year-old. He just always says
that to justify.
No, you were very mature for your age.
Yeah. I thought that I knew everything at that young age, but I've quickly learned that I didn't have a clue with any of that.
Okay. There's some other real estate questions here too and stuff.
Oh, that's fun. Cash flow board game.
Oh yeah.
That's a fun way to get the family in and on board.
So Rick, which oh, this
Jonathan.
Funny. Hey,
funny. Jonathan's on the Zoom. Who's your favorite kid? Who do you think? It's Jonathan, of course. Who knows if he's still on here?
Yeah, Mom. Who's your favorite kid? Not you, Johnny. Not you. Okay. Which video were you referring to, Rick? Can you link that video here in the description?
Oh, it might be the how to solve any problem.
Was it that one, or was it the move around every 5 years? It might have, because he was asking that question.
Oh, yeah.
I did put the AnnMarie's video. I highly recommend you guys watch that. It's in the chat. It was like how to solve any problem.
It's a really linear breakdown to help you kind of be able to see, especially when you're asking about, dealing with arguments, how to come back around after arguments, or even when you're arguing with yourself about a deal, to be able to see what is my motivation in this? Like, is it coming from the worst in me or the best in me?
No.
Jonathan.
Well, it's funny because with the kids, I have,
oh my gosh,
literally $5,000, and it's in 20s because I wanted it to be like fat. So it's $20 bills. It's $5,000, and I told the boys, whoever gets to the whoever wins the challenge gets to the 60,000 first gets this. So when they're doing their calls and stuff, I'll like let them hold it, and they'll play with it. It's funny.
Yeah, it is.
All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up for the day, but really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for all the kind words and great questions, guys. Keep bringing these questions. I hope you guys keep coming on these calls. I hope we can share some ideas that are really helpful. If you guys are in our Fast Track program, that's our real estate coaching program. You can go to fasttrackwithjerry.com to learn more about that. But we do lives on there every week. AnnMarie does her own call with our group every single week. She's talking mostly about mindset. So it's really a phenomenal call. It's a Zoom every single week. And then I do one too, where we do interviews and we break down deals and stuff. And we do there's some live training we do here in Puerto Rico. So those are some things, you guys that want to get more into our world. You guys that are following along on the 0 to 60 challenge, there's a PDF of that program. You can follow along and do it at home. And then you can come on the lives I do with the boys once a week. And I try to answer questions there too. So if you come on there and you're doing the challenge and you're running into stuff, I'll try to make time to answer questions there as well. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think that's a wrap, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys so much.
Love doing it.
All right.
Thanks for hanging with us.
Watch for us again next week, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay. Good night.